This is Quick Thoughts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's edition of Quick Thoughts. After we missed last week's in Muff's absence, we are back in full effect. Muff with his Megatron eyewear.
I'm not real
with
sure
the hat on.
What's with the glasses, Muff?
I love them.
This is
I think it looks
Quick
cool as heck.
Thoughts, competitive version. I will also be wearing these on every betting show from here on out.
He came to play.
All right.
All right, we'll start in football. Acrisure Stadium will keep the Heinz Red Zone in play for years to come, signing a multi-year contract for the Heinz Red Zone in Pittsburgh with the signature ketchup pour on the scoreboard when the Steelers get to the red zone. Did Heinz and Pittsburgh have a choice? Jim?
No, like it's Heinz. You have to keep them with Pittsburgh. Like, I think if you didn't do this, there'd be a lot of issues with the Yinzer people.
Muff?
The Yinzers took the power back into their own hands and said, "Give us the ketchup bottle." And
I
can't take this guy seriously.
And Heinz answered and said, "Oh yes, we'll give you the ketchup bottle back. Acrisure, shove it right up your Acrisure butthole."
Yins. I will say that they did do the ketchup pour, but the only thing that stinks is they put down the giant bottles that like tip in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know that Acrisure might draw the line at putting those back up.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a no from them.
Yeah. In other news, the Chargers doctor who sidelined Tyrod Taylor after puncturing his lung is being sued for $5 million with a trial to take place in April. Is this enough?
I'm not even talking. This is Muff. This is you, buddy.
Muff?
Is this enough? I think this is. I hope Tyrod Taylor gets something out of this because obviously we've joked about this. We've taken this seriously. We've gone all through the gambit of here, and most of it's just to make Jim get uneasy about the situation every time we talk about it. But I do believe that there does need to be some accountability. And if this is the only way for Tyrod Taylor to get something out of this, then go to court, buddy. Get what you got to get. I will put this to bed until April now.
Yeah, thank God. I hope he gets his money, but this is awful.
Am I allowed to bring my medical side view in?
I hope not. Don't talk about it.
Yes.
Not as uncommon to cause a pneumothorax as you would think.
Yeah, let's just say that it never happens and it won't happen to me.
What is your theory? What do you picture happening here?
I don't want my lung punctured.
Okay, but I feel like the misconception for you that may help you is that this needle does not go into the lung. It goes into the pleural.
I don't want my lung punctured.
Well, I'm just saying it goes into your pleural cavity and your lung gets flat because of the air pushing on it on the outside. If it makes you feel better.
Hey. Did you hear the part where you said lung gets flat?
Yes.
Don't want that.
Okay, that is not a puncture, though.
Don't want that.
It was just, okay. I don't think anyone does.
Let's move on.
It's like when people tell me that they don't like needles.
Let's move on.
If you did.
Let's move on.
Arizona State players are brought into a meeting on Sunday where they're being told Herm Edwards is out after a home loss to Eastern Michigan. Arizona State remains under investigation for allegedly committing major recruiting violations that are beyond the pale, if true. Recruits were reportedly brought in during the COVID-19 dead period, violating not only NCAA rules, but also medical common sense and medical ethics. Will this taint Herm Edwards' reputation moving forward? Jim?
No, I don't think it will taint his reputation. He's not as high profile as like an Urban Meyer. I think it will fade away, and Urban still looks like a scolded dog when he's on the Fox broadcast, whereas Herm it won't take as long to get this dust off of him.
Muff?
We'll see Herm back next football season with ESPN. They're going to have to let this one ride out, but next football season he'll be back. And it does slightly taint his reputation because if it didn't, he would be back on ESPN tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it tarnishes it in a small way, but not like you said, like if Urban would do it or something, it's just not as big of a whatever.
Yeah.
But in baseball, I don't know if I can talk about any more baseball, but we're going to do it. New rules are in play for next season. Maybe this will help Pirates. With the following changes: a pitch timer, limits in defensive shifts, and bigger bases. Maybe. Pitch clock, 30-second timer between the batters. Between pitches, there will be a 15-second timer with the bases empty and a 20-second timer with runners on base, along with different regulations for pickoff attempts and resets of the clock if a batter steps out of the box, and an auto ball is called if these rules are not followed. Defensive shifts, with all 4 infielders needing to be on the dirt. The days of the 4 outfielder setup will be over. Even more pertinent, shifting an infielder to play short right field or simply overshifting 3 infielders to the right side of the second base bag will no longer be legal. The bigger bases, the bases will increase from 15 to 18 inches square, with expectations that the larger size reduces collisions around the bag, along with slightly shortening the distance between bases. Will this lead to a better product on the field? Muff?
This will lead to a product that we are more interested in watching, because this is going to translate into more hits, more runs, and all of those other things, because shifts are all intended to, because shifts is the big thing here. The pitch clock is also big, which means that pitchers are going to have less time in between. All of this, I think, translates to more runs, more action, and more excitement, because the regular baseball fan does not want to watch a baseball game or go to a baseball game that's 1-0. So we're going to see more action that we enjoy.
Jim?
I don't want to watch it either way.
I agree with Muff. I think that this will stir it up a little. Basketball. LeBron James has detailed his disappointment with the NBA's punishment of Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver, writing, quote, "Our league definitely got this wrong," end quote. In a series of social media posts Wednesday, Sarver was banned from the NBA for 1 year and fined $10 million after the NBA on Tuesday released its findings from a 10-month independent investigation into allegations of workplace abuse during Sarver's tenure as managing partner of the Suns that has spanned nearly 2 decades. Is this enough, and is James doing the work of a good rep of the league? Jim?
I'm very confused by this whole scenario. If this investigation found what it says it found, why are we not giving the same punishment we gave the Clippers owner and taking the ownership away? It's confusing. Then there's some details about it. Like they say that he was just quoting people, but this is very bad. And sponsorship are like PayPal saying they're not coming back to the team unless he's gone for life. This is one where Silver seems to have lost his shininess. This is bad. I don't like this one.
Muff?
I think that, at least they did something. I understand that's not the standard that the NBA has typically held themselves to, but let's compare this to the NFL right now, where we've got owners just running roughshod over a lot of things, a lot of situations coming out. Then we can't get Dan Snyder out of Washington, no matter what he does. So, I think it's good to see some action, but I don't disagree with LeBron James that he's trying to push the envelope. This is as much of him being, I think, a good representative of the players and of the league and what the league represents. So I think this is him trying to exercise influence over Adam Silver and say, hey, just so you know, we should probably do more here. So I think James did good to insert himself, and we'll see what Adam Silver does in response.
So to counter you for a second, I see your point in that, like Dan Snyder, that was a good point. I guess my point is, we've championed the NBA's the league of consistency, and now they've taken a little right turn.
Slightly. Don't forget what the Clippers owner did.
I agree, and I agree. That's why I said a little right turn. I think this is weird and it's confusing, and I would like, and there's details we're never going to get. That's the other thing that bothers me, is that this is not as transparent. And there's things that in this investigation that it's a lot murkier. And so it's weird for me, and I would like to know more. And this is a podcast that we champion ourselves at Gurus of Nothing. So I need to do more recon. but on the surface, it's confusing, and I would like to see more.
Moving on. Tennis. I haven't gotten to bong anyone in a while. Not bong.
Oh, yeah.
Buzzer. Tennis. Roger Federer. Roger Federer announces his retirement will be final after this week's Lever Cup. Lever Cup? I know a lot about tennis.
I'm not sure.
London. With Serena Williams retiring, Federer out, and the likely retirements of Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic coming in the near future, is tennis going to be hurting without young talent that we all know? Muff?
So we all know that we don't do a lot in the tennis world here.
Right.
But I do think that tennis is going to have some type of reckoning when all of these stars that they've championed for years, decades, which in tennis is unheard of, that you champion your players for decades. You typically get for 5 years, and you're lucky. And I don't know who the new up and comers is. Obviously, we've got Coco Gauff on the women's side, but if you're going to ask me who the next men's players are that are going to rise above, I don't know who that is.
Kyrgios guy or something.
Nick
Kyrgios.
they try to, but then he's an asshole half the time, and then people don't like him. So, like, I think this is going to be a problem for men's tennis whenever we finally see all these guys fade away.
Jim?
I'm going to say, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second. I'm sorry.
There we go.
So, tennis, MMA, golf to some extent. Muff will probably smack me down on that. I probably pushed my envelope a little too far there. I don't think there are sports, NASCAR, that have done enough to build the brands of the generations behind them. We champion the heroes, the Serenas, the Nadals, the Djokovics, but the people coming up behind, we're not doing enough. And so when it's time for these people to retire, it's like, who's up next to keep the sport alive? It's hard for you to get behind it. And I'll jump ahead real quick. Like, Jose Aldo just announced he's retiring in the MMA, a true legend. We've heard tons of MMA guys retiring. Can anybody name the up and comer other than Patty in MMA?
Never.
Right. We can't really name the new up and comer in tennis. NASCAR, when Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Earnhardt Jr., when those guys left, nobody can really name unless you're a NASCAR diehard, the cross brand, that breaks the barriers outside their sport superstar. I think that's the issue with some of these outlying sports. Like, they need to start marketing and building up the brand.
Give us something fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'll just counter real quick. Golf is trying. I just don't know if they're going to be successful.
I knew that was coming.
Well, by doing like their social media stuff, like at least they're putting the incentive for young players, because that's who you're seeing more on social media is the younger players, at least from the start. They can at least build a following from like college on if they want. So they're trying. I'm not going to say it's going to work, but at least they have incentive to be not just good golfers, but also be good business people.
And to counter your counter for a second, like, they're doing that with still being in the confines of the old ways by the PGA versus the LIV Golf. Like, they want to do this social media champion, but they want to play within the rules of the old school. And that to me is, you got to think outside the box a little bit. And that's what LIV Golf is doing.
They have more money.
You have to invest. All right.
Isn't the next topic LIV Golf?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so we know.
Not the next, but it's coming up. Speaking of MMA, former longtime UFC and WEC featherweight champion Jose Aldo, 36, has retired from UFC. His team told ESPN on Sunday. Jim, you just commented on this. Anything more to say?
I think it's crazy. Like, these guys that basically built the sport are leaving. And I mean, they're getting hit in the face all the time, so I understand. But to me, it's crazy. This is the Jose Aldo fight where Conor said, I'm going to knock you out in 8 seconds, and he knocked him out in 8 seconds. It was the launch pad, in my opinion, for Conor McGregor. Like, that's what took him to superstardom. Mm-hmm. Jose Aldo was a bad man. So crazy. It's crazy to me.
Muff, any comments, Dad?
No, I mean, I like Jim's a much bigger MMA fan than I, but I do recall Jose Aldo being a star in the UFC. And it is interesting to hear, especially how old he is at 36.
Right.
Like if you were to ask me how old is Jose Aldo, I'd be like, oh, he's like in his early 30s, and he probably should have retired 2 years ago. You know, one of those things. But to hear somebody's 36, you know, is pretty much as old as Jim and I, and still going out there and getting their head bashed in for a living.
Yeah.
I think says a lot about the sport, and
Yeah.
maybe some things that they should do to help push the platform of these guys being able to retire earlier than their mid to late 30s.
Amen.
Keeping with the MMA theme, Jake Paul, who's set to fight MMA legend Anderson Silva in a boxing match on October 29th, is interested in fighting MMA legend and this show's guy, Nate Diaz. Thoughts?
If Jake Paul wants to get his head knocked off, because if anyone thinks that Nate Diaz is going to follow whatever rules Jake Paul wants to put in place, then he's off his rocker. Now, I will say that the Diaz will promote this better than any fight he's had thus far, and it will be the most viewed fight aside from whatever the major MMA fight that's been viewed. It may even have higher views, whatever their pay-per-view platform is, than anything. But this is a good business move, but it may not be a good life move for Jake Paul.
Jim?
I put this in here just for that. That's all I did. I love that. Yes. Muff handled it perfectly.
All right, then we will jump over to LIV Golf. Phil Mickelson says that LIV Golf is here to stay, and the PGA Tour should come together with LIV. Is Phil just trying to salvage LIV with this statement, or does this plea have validity for the good of golf?
It's
Jim,
my
you
turn.
first. Yeah.
Which is rare that I land on golf. I think the LIV thing is here for a while. I'm not going to say to stay. I think this is Phil trying to mend fences. And I think it does have some validity that it is good for golf.
Okay. Muff?
I think that this is good for golf in terms of the PGA Tour having to step up their game. Unfortunately, Will Zalatoris, not fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you think of this, did an interview recently. And Will Zalatoris, obviously one of the young up-and-comers in the PGA, where he said, hey, this is all great and well that these older guys who are not as competitive week to week can go get a payday and don't have to worry about the grind. But for me, Will Zalatoris said, somebody who's made 10 plus million playing golf and still has the opportunity to continue to do so on the PGA Tour, I am going to stay loyal to the tour, which has given me this opportunity at this time. So the problem with LIV is going to be, can they get an up and coming young star like Cam Smith? Can they get somebody? Brooks Koepka at this point is lumped into that older, when I say older than the young up and comers, who has had injuries. Phil Mickelson, who has a very checkered past when it comes to money, and is older in golf terms. So LIV is here, and it is going to raise the PGA Tour, and I think that's going to be the problem for LIV, is that PGA Tour is going to elevate and LIV is going to fade. Because I haven't watched a LIV golf event, and I enjoy watching golf. I don't think either of you have watched LIV, and you've talked about how it's interesting. So until LIV gets that platform nationally and internationally where they're gaining attraction and viewers, it's just going to continue to fade.
I like it.
Yep,
That was a good breakdown of everything this week, guys. And I think that wraps up this week's quick thoughts.
We have winners. Do you keep track? Did you stop keeping track, Alex?
Muff, he stopped keep track like weeks ago.
I know. I just wanted.
You wear the glasses and now you want to win.
I knew this was coming, actually. The funny thing is I predicted that because now Muff has glasses on, he wants this to be competitive and would like to win.
Right.
I think it was kind of a tie because we really hit hard on MMA and we hit hard on golf. And I think you both made good points in your respective fields. So I'll call this a tie, and we'll try to make it more competitive next week. As long as you bring back the glasses, Muff, I will keep making it a challenge.
Are we allowed to have ties in fantasy football?
No.
Then why are we allowed to have ties in quick thoughts?
That's a good point. Actually, I don't know what happens if we tie. That's a good point.
Actually, I don't know what happens in our league either.
Muff
if I'm
wins
being
the top
honest.
proverbial moment.
He's pushing the judge around.
Yeah.